Hey y'all, I'm Rylan. Welcome to my channel. I wanted to jump in to very quickly talk about 10 books that I want to read before the end of 2024. This has been a video that has been going around Booktube for a couple of weeks now, and I really wanted to jump in and participate because I also have 10 books or more than 10 books that I would like to read before the end of this year. I'm going to go ahead and go through this list very quickly. There's nothing super crazy on here. A lot of these books will also probably ideally be books that I use for Bookmas content this year as well, so kind of doubling up in that aspect, so be prepared to see some of these books mentioned in videos in December. But I've got 10 books here and I want to chat about them really fast. I don't tend to read synopses too much before diving into my books, so I don't have a lot to say about what these books are about, but I can give you the genre and my general thoughts on them potentially if I have anything special to say. But we're just gonna go ahead and jump into these 10 books that I want to read before the end of the year. The first two books on this list are books that I don't have physically. The first one is Collide. This is a hockey romance, and I would like to read it for a reading vlog. Don't know anything about this one, but I was looking for sports romances to read, and I've been seeing this one around social media and it was readily available at my library, so I'll be reading an e-copy of this book in a couple of weeks hopefully, but I do want to get to this one before the end of the year. The other one that I have that I don't have with me physically, it's actually at my boyfriend's apartment, is The Wren in the Holly Library by K.A. Lind. This is a book that is on my fall TBR. I did upload a video talking about 5 books that I wanted to read this fall, and I've already read 3 of those books and I have 2 left that I'd like to get to before the end of this year, and this is one of them. This is a romantasy book about a girl who makes a bargain with a devil or a monster, I want to say, and she's living in the real world, but the magical world and the real world collide and she ends up being involved somehow. It is enemies to lovers romantasy. After reading Phantasma, oh, I have it somewhere. I think it's up on top of my shelf up there. After reading Phantasma a couple weeks ago, I have really been itching for more romantasy. I've heard really great things about this author and have very high hopes about the romance and the chemistry and the fantasy elements and the magic and the mystery. I have high hopes about everything for this book, so we'll see how I end up feeling about it. But I have an advanced copy of this book from the publisher. This book has already been released, but I would like to get to this one very soon. The rest of these books I have physically with me, at least for the time being, because 2 of these I have recently borrowed from my library. The first is Ready or Not by Cara Bastone, and I am reading this book purely because my friend Aylin read it recently or earlier this year and absolutely loved it. It is a romance. It's also friends to lovers, and since reading Morbidly Yours by Ivy Fairbanks a couple weeks ago, I have also realized how fun the friends to lovers trope can be. So I'm hoping that this one is very fun. She said to listen to the audiobook if I have the chance to, so if I have the audiobook available from my library, I might double up on how I'm reading this one, but she loved it, so I would like to try it out. The next book that I have on this list that I need to get to is Model Home by Rivers Solomon. I don't know a ton about this book. I do know that it's about generational trauma. I've been watching Olivia from Olivia's Catastrophe read this book in several of her vlogs, and I've been very intrigued by this one and very curious to check it out. And otherwise, I'm kind of just going off vibes based off what I've seen and heard about this one, but I have also heard very good things about Rivers Solomon, and I'm very excited to try out this book by them. I have heard of The Deep and Sorrowland. I haven't read anything by the author, but I thought that this one would be kind of up my alley and potentially a very great way to end the year. So we'll see about this one. The rest of these books I do own physically. First up is Dreams of 18 by Saffron A. Kent. This is a spicy romance. My bestie Stasia gave this to me for my birthday last year or Christmas, and she read it and annotated a second copy to send along to me, and I have not yet read this one. This is the second book in a series. I have read the first one and loved it, so I'm excited to get to this one. I do own a bunch of special editions by Saffron A. Kent, as I have read several of her books and I've really enjoyed them. So this one is up on my list, ideally before the end of the year. I've also got Cross-Checked Hearts. This is another hockey romance that I'm hoping to read for a vlog at some point. I don't know anything about this book, but I got it in my Romance Reveal book box, which is a romance book box subscription that I used to have. I currently have it canceled because I have not been reading books from the subscription box, just because I've been reading other things instead. But I do really feel like I'm in the mood for romance right now, and I think that this one would be a very good one to check out. I have heard of this author before, but I have not heard of this book or really seen it around, so I'm excited to get to it. I love a good hockey romance, and it's been a while since I've read one. Next, I've got The Eyes Are the Best Part by Monica Kim. I have been seeing this book everywhere on social media. It sounds super good. I've seen some really big booktubers talk about this one and have really enjoyed it. The little tagline right here says, "Rage is best served raw." I think it's kind of like a mix of horror and literary fiction. I have a feeling it's going to be very eerie, but also hit very deep, and I'm excited to get to it. Ideally, I want to do a single book review video for this book because I've just been seeing it everywhere and would love to share my own thoughts on it, but we'll see when I end up getting to it. I do think this one also sounds up my alley though, but also like a little bit different for me because I haven't read horror, a ton of horror recently at least, and I'm very intrigued by both of these especially, but I just need to jump back into the genre a little bit more. So that's the next book that I have on this list. I also have, speaking of horror, because I guess that's what a lot of this list is, I also need to read Incidents Around the House by Josh Malerman. This is the 5th book that I had on my fall TBR, the 5th book that I talked about in my fall TBR video that I haven't gotten to yet. And I have been hearing the best things about this book. I've actually had the opportunity to read several of Josh Malerman's books. I've had arcs of a couple of his books as well, including Daphne and Pearl. I think I also got an arc of, but I have read Bird Box. I've watched the movie, really enjoyed them both. And this is a horror book about a young girl who is living with her parents and believes that there is this other mommy who's been talking to her and wants to get inside her heart. So it's told from the perspective of a young girl, which I find super fascinating, and I know that this one is going to be super creepy. I've been meaning to get to this one since it came out, and I want to prioritize it before the end of this year because it's so loved, but like in the best way, because it's creepy and it's horrifying, but it's also just really, really good. And I've heard there are some very, very good quotes in this, so I almost wonder if I should annotate it or tab it up while I read it, because I think this could be a 2024 favorite for me. The last 2 books that I have are both Book of the Month books, because if you've watched my recent Book of the Month reading vlog, I am determined to get the 2024 Book of the Month Challenge prize, which is a hat that says "Reading is Sexy." So book number 9 on my 10 Before the End is The Last Word by Taylor Adams. I've had this book for a while now. I've read 2 of this author's other books and gave them both 5 stars. Absolutely loved them. So I don't know what this one is about, but I knew I needed it when I saw that Book of the Month was doing it at some point last year in May of 2023. So this one is another high priority before the end of the year, largely because it's Book of the Month. Also, I need to just read Taylor Adams' most recent book because I've given 5 stars to his last 2. So I need to do better about keeping up with authors that I love. The final book that I have on my list is a literary fiction novel, which makes me a little bit nervous, but I've heard pretty good things about it so far. It sounded very interesting to me on the Book of the Month app when I was looking at the November picks for this year, and the cover is just stunning, so there's that as well. But this is a literary fiction. I've already said that. I have no idea what it's about, but I need to read some more debuts for the Book of the Month reading app, or for the Book of the Month reading challenge, and I don't know what to expect with this one. I feel like this could also be one that I want to annotate. I feel like literary fiction is a genre that is meant to be annotated and studied and tabbed, and I might do that with this one if I have time. It's not a very long book, thankfully, but I'm hoping that it's very fun. Even though I don't read a lot of books in this genre, I do want to branch out, of course. I do like to read a little bit of everything. You kind of see that in my 10 Before the End list. I mean, I've got thrillers, horror books, fantasy, romance, literary fiction, and I do read a little bit of everything. I do tend to gravitate more toward thrillers and romance and kind of horror, so that is very much heavily populated on this list, but I also want to branch out before the end of the year a little bit more still, so I have a couple of other books on this list as well. Those are 10 books that I need to prioritize before the end of this year. School will be pretty much non-existent for me in the month of December. I am off work for like 2 weeks almost, and I'm taking off 2 days for some family traveling, and so it should be a time where I can really prioritize these 10 books that I've talked about. I will be reading a lot of these for Bookmas content, hopefully, fingers crossed, and I'm hoping to just be able to spend a lot of time reading these books as well as other things that I might be able to get to throughout the month of December, as well as this last week and a half of November, because it's not quite the end of the month yet. It's gonna be here though before we know it. Cannot believe we're at this point in the year to be making these types of videos, but here we are, we're doing it. Those are the 10 books that I want to read before the end of this year. Will I get to more? Hopefully. Will I get to all of these? Ideally. That's the goal. That's why I talk about them in this video. But those are the books. Keep an eye out for videos featuring several of these books throughout the next couple of weeks. I do plan to post pretty heavily for Bookmas, so keep an eye out for those vlogs and book review videos, and hopefully it will be a very, very fun time. If there are any books that you would like to get to before the end of the year, feel free to comment down below and let me know what they are. I would love to talk about the books that you would like to prioritize before the end of 2024. But that is all that I have for today's video. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next one.